I honestly, I have never experienced a level of unprofessionalism in my career. It's unbelievable.
So, Judge, if we had any pretrial matters, you asked us to be here at 9:15. We were here at 9:15 to discuss pretrial matters. I have been practicing in this county for 22 years.
You know what, I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear
Well, Judge, you're insulting me on the record in front of my client, and I believe that I should be able to defend myself.
You can do that later. You can make your record later, but you've been insulting me the entire trial. So, blatantly, taking your headphones off, arguing with me, storming out, coming late intentionally if you don't like my rulings. So, quite frankly, this has been long overdue. So please be seated. You can receive the evidence. I will receive the evidence. And then you can put whatever you want on the record at the end.
There are no words does not apply today, as I have many words that I choose to say. You made a decision, and I pray that you are tormented and tortured, both physically and mentally, because of it. How dare you use the excuse that you performed the unthinkable because you had a challenging upbringing. In your video, you demonstrated that you were in full control and quite calculative with what you intended to do. You carried it out and were quite coherent to request a sentencing trial by jury. How dare you cover your ears during the trial? How dare you destroy this community and my family? God should not have mercy on your soul or physical being. You robbed my family and many others of life, happiness, love, and so much more. Alyssa was an innocent, charismatic, and empathetic young soul who was on a path to make a difference in this world. You destroyed that. You single-handedly robbed her of the right to live that you exercised by request of jury trial for sentencing. As a grandmother, you took away my pleasure of spending quality time with my granddaughter. I pass by stores she loved to shop in, and all I'm filled with is sadness. The love between a grandmother and grandchild is powerful, and you've single-handedly destroyed that. I'm tortured every day knowing that I won't receive a call saying, "Grandma, can you?" or "Grandma, I love you." All I have now are the memories. Your actions have turned my family and my life upside down. Alyssa's grandfather, my late husband, lost his desire to live, which in turn cost him his life through illness. You've abolished all fibers of happiness. I'm not here today because my own health has been compromised, somewhat in part to your actions. We have no inner peace and are suffering tremendously. What you did is worse than pouring liquid acid on an open wound. The fact that you are still breathing the same air that I am sends shivers down my spine. You are a revolting entity. I can't even call you human, as you are not. Your excuse was to blame dear old mommy. Are you serious? I hope you blame your dear old mom for the hell you're going to receive while in jail. The death penalty would have been a cakewalk compared to the demons you'll face going forward. I'm filled with many hateful and hurtful words, but alas, you're not worth any of them. You've not earned any mercy. Again, the death penalty would have been your best retreat. May every second of your rotten existence be faced with the images of each person you've slaughtered, along with each family member you've damaged. May our words haunt you like your actions haunt us.
People have asked, what should I say if I come face to face with your niece's murderer? Words are meaningless to an abomination such as yourself. However, that's all I have to demonstrate my resolve. While they won't bring back my niece, Alyssa, or the 16 other angels you've mutilated back, they will be the vehicle that haunts your soul minute by minute, day by day. Your deed hit me on 3 levels: as a teacher, as an uncle, and as a human. As a teacher, I'm faced with making sure my classroom doors are secured and locked. I promised my learners that I will stand in front of them should something occur. Instead of planning for instruction, My colleagues and I now have to plan out how to look at a child in the eye who is stricken with terror and mobilize them to safety. Can you imagine what that sight is like? Wait, you absolutely can. However, I wonder if you've thought about how that look will embody you when you walk inside your cell and pray that the doors are locked. Who will be there to tell you everything will be all right? Definitely not your dear old mommy. The teachers at Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School and all over the U.S. didn't go to school to learn how to play defensive tackle. I sure as heck didn't. We went to school to learn how to nurture youth and offer guidance as best as possible. In fact, you were a recipient of these mental health opportunities, but chose not to be receptive to it. The mental health system didn't fail you. You failed you. Who is going to be your defensive tackle now? Truthfully, I don't care. As an uncle, I've had the sincerest pleasure watching Alyssa grow up into a distinguished and well-respected young lady. She was filled with empathy, care, and the belief that everyone deserved equity. In fact, if she had known you, she would have even lent an ear or a shoulder. While you single-handedly splintered and ruptured my family upon putting 10 bullets in this young soul, the one thing you've not robbed us of is our resolve. My brother, Alyssa's father, pushes forward daily and fights alongside my sister-in-law, Alyssa's mother, to ensure safety reforms. Together, they maintain a strong front while continuing to raise Alyssa's brothers. My mother, albeit her health challenges, somewhat in part to your deed, yearns to be there for her family in any way possible. My father, in his dying breath, did what he could do to offer comfort and love to the family. God rest his soul. Even my older brother, another uncle of Alyssa's, looks for ways to move forward and offer support to reduce pain. Resolve. As a human being, I believe that everyone has a chance to live and grow, be resolute in their decisions, and deserve great opportunities. Given that you've chosen to live and exercise the same right that you've taken away from the 17 you've decimated, you also deserve great opportunities. You deserve the opportunity to rot away. You deserve the opportunity to absorb the look of terror on your face once you leave this courtroom. You deserve the opportunity of knowing that justice will prevail at some point, causing you great anguish, minute by minute, day by day. So coming back to the question of what I would say, since I'm now face to face with you, sort of virtually, may the words of my mouth and the sentiments of the entire Parkland community, along with the voices of the extended community, grant you resonating images and reminders of the resolute decisions you've chosen. May our resolve continually prod you of the freedoms you no longer have and the ones that will continually be taken from you. Please exercise your right and rot in hell. That's all I have to say.
Just to be in the same room as this monster who killed our son Nikolas and attempted to murder our son Alex. This unbearable. One of the most disgusting and unprofessional actions that occurred in this courtroom was the defense team holding, touching, and giggling with this cold-blooded murderer. We found this to be so offensive to our family, as well as our son Nikolas' memory. After today, no one will speak of this killer. He will be forgotten. We will, however, always remember, honor, and live for Alyssa, Scott, Martine, Aaron, Jamie, Chris, Luke, Kara, Gina, Joaquin, Elena, Meadow, Helena, Alex, Carmen, Peter, and our beautiful Nikolas. May their memories be a blessing. Thank you.
I couldn't protect her, and I couldn't save her. You robbed Alyssa a lifetime of memories. Alyssa will never graduate from high school. Alyssa will never go to college. And Alyssa will never play soccer. She will never get married. And she will never have a baby. To the killer of Alyssa Miriam Al-Hadef, my hope is that you are miserable for the rest of your pathetic life. My hope for you is that the pain of what you did to my family burns and traumatizes you every day. One day, God will decide your fate. As the Great Seal of the state of Florida says, in God we trust. May your life be horrific, painful, and shown no mercy.
Let me share how angry and frustrated I am with the judicial system. After 4.5 grueling years, a failed judicial system did not hand down a death sentence to the murder of my daughter and 16 others. Do I see this as accountability? Absolutely not. Do we now have closure? Let me be clear. Absolutely not. What I see is that the system values this animal's life over the 17 now dead. Worse, we sent a message to the next killer out there that the death penalty would not be applied to mass killing. This is wrong and needs to be fixed immediately. Alyssa deserved so much more than to be shot 8 times in her English class. Alyssa deserved to live her life and fulfill her dreams. She deserved to experience life for all that it had to offer and all that she had to offer this world. To the Parkland murderer that killed my daughter, you skirted the death penalty, and you are nothing but a coward. But know this, while my family mourns our beautiful Alyssa, you will not own us, nor our feelings. We will go on glorifying Alyssa's life through our foundation, Make Our School Safe, and like my wife said, we will be her voice. Alyssa's law will become federally mandated, and we will make our schools safe from animals like you. We will make sure that everyone remembers Alyssa. You, on the other hand, will remain in a cage like the creature you are. I only pray that you get to rot in that cage and that you are punished each day 17 times over for the 17 you murdered. I stand by others who say that you have no redeemable value. You killed without remorse, without compassion, without prejudice, so shall you receive the same in return. Prisoner 0893407. So now let me ask your honor to redeem my belief in the judicial system. Provide a punishment like no other. Stop providing the safety and security for this animal. Take away a piece of this creature's life every day until this creature has no life. Over $2 million spent on this creature's security, millions on the defense, and millions going forward. Stop spending millions of taxpayer dollars on this killer. Put this creature in general population where it is afforded no additional protections, and issue punishment like no other. Forbid TV, internet, mail, phone calls, visitation, and education. Let this creature be erased from society, never to be heard from again. Let him wear a shock collar like the animal he is. Most of all, and under absolutely no circumstances, should this animal ever be given an opportunity for parole. No matter who presides over the matter, let this be the final determination. one which shall stand and one that can never be overturned. Send a clear message to our society that mass murder cannot and will not be tolerated. And to all the media outlets, I ask once again, no notoriety. Block out this creature's face and this creature's name. Call this creature what it is: a mass murderer, a killer, an animal.
If the jury had followed that law, if the jury took in the evidence presented, there is only one logical and fact-based outcome. Sadly, the jury ignored the facts and went with emotion. They worried about how they would feel if this murdering bastard was put to death by the state of Florida for committing this heinous crime. They were selfish and misguided and allowed prisoner number 0893407 to avoid the punishment he deserved. The jury was worn out and did not want to be sequestered. The jury instructions were complex, and I believe these factors combined and led to a less than thorough deliberation process. Did they consider what kind of message their verdict sent to our nation's students and teachers when they found a way to excuse the murder of Gina and the others? Did they consider how they would explain their verdict to the siblings of the victims, as my wife and I struggled to do? The current requirement for a unanimous decision for a death verdict is tough to meet. It allows one activist juror with preconceived bias against the death penalty to swing the case in favor of evil. Once one juror shows sympathy, decides that they can't live with the tough decision to hold a murderer, and in this case, a mass murderer, accountable, it relieves the others and allows them an avenue to avoid voting for the death penalty. The vote is not to put a random individual to death. It is called the death penalty because it's supposed to be imposed due to the actions of the convicted murderer. Assuming that's supported by facts, as the jury acknowledged clearly in this case. An interesting historical fact is that now two of the most infamous mass murderers in Florida history, Ted Bundy and this murderer of my child and 16 others, did not receive a unanimous verdict of death in our state's courts. Perhaps it's time for the state legislature to make a change, back to a simple majority or perhaps a supermajority of 9 votes out of 12, to impose the maximum punishment when the aggravating factors warrant it. This would be more fair to the victims. My beautiful, bubbly, and kind daughter deserved to live a happy and full life. She should have been protected at her school from the monster sitting here, with no less than, 6 BSO deputies, as he enjoys the protection of his rights in this courtroom. I applaud the court and the prosecution team for following the ideals of our justice system, as the evil murderer enjoyed a fair trial. I don't believe the case was fair to the victims. The court allowed the defense to show every aspect of prisoner 8093407's life prior to the execution of Gina and her classmates. Pictures showing his smiling face, while at the same time claiming life was so tough it justified the mass murder of innocent students and teachers in school. Our families were prohibited from bringing photos of our murdered loved ones to the courtroom. We couldn't even wear bracelets or pins to court to represent the victims. The court did everything it could to dehumanize our beautiful Gina, her classmates, and her teachers who were massacred by this admitted murderer. My family and the others had to sit like church mice in the courtroom for fear of influencing the jury and possibly causing a mistrial. We all showed amazing grace and decorum as we learned the terrible things this murdering bastard did to our children, spouses, and fathers. The justice system even stops the jury from considering our victim impact statements. How could it be a fair trial when the only people who can speak for the victims, those who cannot speak for themselves, have the jury instructed to disregard our words? The system is biased against the victims. It trampled the First Amendment rights of my family in a misguided effort to protect the perpetrator of these heinous crimes. This injustice must be fixed. The victims' rights must be recognized. As for the defense team, you had a job to do. You had no case because the facts of the cold, calculated, horrific actions should have sealed this mass murderer's fate via the law. Somehow, though, you all managed to be petty and marginally professional. You disrespected the court in words and action. You laughed and joked with the twisted and purely evil man you defended. You brought in talented out-of-town personnel to bolster your team and help represent the murderer of my child. No expense was spared as you sought out experts in established and in questionable science, many of which you did not use as you chose to prey on the jury's emotions. What was the cost of prisoner 0893407's defense to the taxpayers of Broward County? That number has yet to be revealed. Those citizens should all ask why. Why was so much effort put towards this prisoner, while in this very building, the same week his verdict was read, 2 other murderers were sentenced to death for their crimes? Quite frankly, you had no right to ask this jury for mercy. He showed no mercy when he shot my forever 14-year-old Gina in the chest, just as he thought about doing when he searched the internet for months before. The dirtbag even came back and shot her on a second pass. Unbelievable. As I read to the court last time I spoke here, Gina loved life. She loved her family, and she was literally a lifesaver. She would have gone on to change the world had she been able to grow up and fulfill her potential. My family had hoped this jury would follow the law and vote to give the low-life admitted killer the maximum penalty allowed to the fullest extent of the law. We expected the admitted mass murderer to die in prison and at the soonest possible opportunity under the law. He should not be allowed any kind of life, any joy, or any time to reflect quietly on his continued existence. We all have choices to make in life, struggles we must all work through. Despite these struggles, we should look to help one another. Yet the dirtbag murderer, who has now gotten a fair trial, chose to kill and maim as many innocent students as teachers as he could, without remorse, without compassion, and with extreme prejudice. He deserves the same treatment throughout his stay in the state penitentiary system. He has had a lot of help throughout his life, and yet he chose to attack our nation's future by shooting up a school. The murdering bastard that took my daughter's life has benefited from the grace and protections of every system our society offers. He should now be placed in a correctional facility where he is forced to interact without those protections. The misguided jury thought prisoner 089-3407 was failed by society. To be clear, the system, schools, mental health professionals, law enforcement, and now the justice system failed my daughter Gina, her classmates, and her teachers, which he chose to murder. A planned, cold, calculated, heinous attack where the monster chose to pull his trigger 139 individual times.
We were still children back then. I was still a child when I saw you standing at the window, peering into my Holocaust Studies class, holding your AR-15 that had swastikas ironically scratched into it. I was still a child after I watched you kill 2 of my friends. I was still a child when you shot me with your gun. You shot me in the leg, and if you looked me in the face like I'm looking you right now, you would see the scars on it from the hot shrapnel that was lodged into it. Do you remember? After you sprayed my classroom with bullets, standing in the dorm frame, peering into the work you've done? Do you remember my little battered, bloody face looking back at you? I could have sworn we locked eyes. This is only the beginning of how you ruined my life and many others. It's not the physical suffering. It's not just that you killed and injured a total of 34 people. It's the fact that I'll have to live with the aftermath of this for the rest of my life. I'll always have PTSD, depression, anxiety, suicidal ideations. Speaking of suicide, 3 students killed themselves because of what you did. Now, to speak quite frankly, not only do I want to kill myself sometimes, I live with constant fear that someone exactly like you will finish off the job you failed to do by not killing me. You gave me and many others a lifetime of trauma, pain, and suffering, long after you committed this crime, and for what? You are nobody now. You are not special. You have no longer the power anymore. You will step away from this, and you will have the most unremarkable, pathetic existence, one in which I only pray that you suffer. I remember the person you were. I remember how you terrorized and threatened and fought my friends, even after many of them made efforts to get to know you better. I remember how enthusiastic you were to incite violence and spread your racist hate speech publicly. I could have saved all of us 4.5 years. So here it is. You were a hateful bigot with an AR-15 and a God complex. You still are, minus the gun. You might have everyone else fooled, but not me, because this is personal. Racism is not a mental illness. Perfectly planned and articulated manifestos and plans are not characteristics of the sickly or the mentally unhinged. You are not this helpful, vulnerable, mentally ill adult the defense tried to paint you as, and you certainly do not deserve any sympathy or pity from me or anyone in this courtroom. You had circumstances that placed you at odds with the world. Yet instead of trying to solve your problems, you threw a tantrum of lethal and tremendous size. Like a pathetic, entitled child, you made the message clear that you lack the competency to make any decisions except those that resort to violence. I assure you, you will not be famous for this. I assure you that our people will be accounted for, they'll grow and heal despite you. I assure you that I will be excitedly anticipating your demise. And I will assure you that you will remember my face, and it will make you sick. You have no power anymore. You have no future. You have nothing. I'll get to walk out of this courthouse without cuffs and go home. You will not. The people that you kill will have a legacy much more important than you. And the people who nearly killed will live their lives, though with much difficulty, with a compassion and a dignity in ways you will only dream. Without your stupid gun, you are nothing. My name is Sam Fuentes, and you will not forget me. I'll never forgive or forget what you've done. And to say I won't be angry for the rest of my life would be a lie, even though I know that's exactly what you want. Though I'm angry about this verdict and believe you do not deserve to share the same earth as the rest of us, unlike you, in a state of great adversity, I can proudly say I'll never stoop as low as you will.
Daughter Carmen and her 16 others were hunted down and brutally murdered at Marjory Stoneman Douglas High School on February 14, 2018, by the cold and calculated murderer that sits in this courtroom. Instead of sentencing the shooter to death, members of this jury decided to sentence him to life without parole, a life where he can read his fan mail, talk with visitors, enjoy the Florida sunshine, eat meals prepared for him, and watch TV. His life spared for taking the lives of 17 innocent souls, a decision I do not agree with or understand. These last 4.5 years, I have learned the hard way that having your child murdered is excruciating and gut-wrenching, but so is the process in finding justice and some level of accountability. A small amount of justice could have come the day of the shooting if one of the Broward sheriff's officers would have rushed into the building and confronted the shooter. He may have killed himself or been killed, saving our families the heartache of having this trial in the first place. Or even prior to the shooting, others like the school and FBI could have taken effective action to stop the killer from easily shooting Carmen to death in her AP psychology class. But none of those things happened, so I was hoping that this trial and the jury's verdict of a death sentence would provide some level of accountability for the murderer. Although one death sentence does not even come close to the 17 homicides and 17 attempted homicides he committed. I am still shocked at how members of this jury could decide a life sentence for someone whose life goal was to harm and kill others. For years, he plotted and told others that he wanted to get a gun, dreamed of blood and violence, and researched other school shootings. In the months prior, he posted on social media that he wanted to be a school shooter and gather his arsenal. In the weeks prior, he developed a shooting playlist and studied a map of the school. Days prior, he created videos saying that he was aiming for a high body count and wanting to be remembered. And then, to further inflict pain, he chose to commit his acts of hate on Valentine's Day, so that this holiday would never be about love, but of love taken. Rather than trying to build a life for himself, this heinous individual chose to take the lives of others. And instead of sentencing this wicked murderer to death, the same sentence he gave Carmen and his other victims, members of this jury decided in less than 24 hours to give the adult who committed the deadliest high school shooting ever a life sentence, ultimately sending a message to other potential mass shooters that their life might be spared no matter how many other lives they take. This sentence also shines a spotlight on the disparity of our so-called justice system, where others who murder fewer people receive a death sentence. It is clear a few members of this jury value Carmen's life and the lives of 16 others less than the shooters. It is also clear that they do not value the lives of future victims that will come about because of their decision as well. That vile monster took all of that away. He deprived the world from seeing Carmen make this world a better place. In the end, I know the evil murderer didn't show mercy to Carmen, nor did he think about the 17 lives taken when committing his acts of hate and violence. At his guilty plea, the killer said, "I believe it's your decision to decide where I go and whether I live or die, not the jury's. I believe it was your decision." If only that is how our court system worked, but it doesn't. The decision instead was made by the jury. I hope they would sentence him to death. The same fate as Carmen, Alana, Alyssa, Alex, Kara, Meadow, Helena, Gina, Nick, Martine, Luke, Jamie, Joaquin, Peter, Chris, Scott, and Aaron.
The only thing that could stop Carmen were bullets fired from the rifle of a pathetic and vile coward. As amazing and loved as Carmen was, She has been failed by every institution in our country that should have been protecting her. The FBI, the Sheriff's Office, the school district, and the mental health system all failed Carmen. The FBI had multiple tips the murderer was going to commit mass murder and did nothing. The mental system showed for the murderer alone, providing services but never actually trying to help. The school district failed on multiple levels, from the school's principal who testified the security of his school was not his responsibility, to the chief of student performance and accountability who days after Carmen's murder justified unlocked doors and open gates and Marjorie Stoneman Douglas by saying it was a common practice across the school district, to the school safety specialist who saw the murderer enter the school with a gun and ran away or hid in a closet, but never called a code red on the radio. Carmen was failed by the coward Broward, who the Broward Sheriff Office led an MSC to retire in place, instead of dealing with his poor performance. But he was not alone. She was failed by the 7 other BSO officers who stood around while children and teachers were murdered, none having the courage to do what was right and needed. And finally, she has been failed by our legal system, for there is no justice for Carmen and the 16 other murder victims. Failed by individuals whose hubris value the life of a depraved, premeditating, and unrepentant mass murderer over the lives of the 17 remarkable people.
Gonzalez, are you here today to give a statement regarding Joaquin Oliver?
Yes.
Would you please do so?
Before I open this, I am wearing Joaquin's t-shirt that he wore the night before you killed him. And it says, if you can't read Spanish, it says, you with bullets, I with balls. And I just want to start with that. This is my protection. This is Joaquin with me. Crazy enough, he knew what was coming. Hatred that can be funneled into one human being. Like, there is so much hate in your body. And I'm sorry for that. I would have wished you the love that I experienced before you led me to the experience of sitting in this courtroom and listening to a medical examiner tell me that my best friend's head was only held together by the skin of his scalp after you were done with him. That it was like a cherry bomb, quoted, like a cherry bomb went off in his skull. And I will live with that. And you will live with that in a different way. And I won't have to worry if you celebrate it or whatever you do with it. But the point is, I would have wished love for you. I would have. And I want to, because that's who I am, but I can't. And I'm sorry that your heart knows nothing of warmth. And on behalf of Joaquin, you may have taken my body, and for that, fuck you, but you cannot take my love.
Christopher Brent Hickson was an extraordinary man. He was a father. He was a husband. He was a son, a brother, an uncle, a cousin, a godfather, and friend to many. He was stolen from us by an unimaginable act that you planned and executed. You stole him from us, and you did not receive the justice that you deserved. There is no mitigating circumstance that will ever outweigh the heinous and cruel way you stole him from us. You were given a gift of grace and mercy, something you did not show to any of your victims. I wish nothing for you today. After today, I don't care what happens to you. You'll be sent to jail, you'll begin your punishment, you'll be a number, and for me, you will cease to exist. You have taken enough from me and my family, and today, we close this chapter on this part of our nightmare and only remember Chris for the hero he was to us every day. I pray the media and the rest of our community also closes the door, and that your name and existence will be erased from everyone's conversation. You wanted to see the family suffer. Well, no more. We will not just survive, we will thrive, And we will honor Chris and the other 16 beautiful people that you took from us with positive action and wonderful memories. They will not just be victims of the MSD shooting. They were individuals. They had plans and dreams, and I will live the rest of my life making those dreams come true. I will no longer let the darkness of how he was stolen from us be how he is remembered. I will take my pain and turn it into purpose and continue to shine the bright light of Chris's life to help others. Thank you.
I was sent an Instagram picture in dialogue with you pointing AR-15 directly at my townhouse, Nikolas. I have a great idea for you while you're spending your time in jail. You should write a book on how you and your defense counsel beat the judicial system and got away with murder. And speaking of the judicial system, the Florida Supreme Court should look at the law that was changed in 2016 that allows the minority rule in the case of a death sentence verdict. If killing 17 innocent people and wounding 17 more does not warrant the death penalty, then what possibly does? I'm too old to see you live out your life sentence, but I hope your ever-breathing moment here on earth is miserable, and you repent for your sins, Nikolas, and burn in hell.
Parkland murderer. My name is David Robinovitz. I'm Alyssa Aladev's grandfather, and she was my friend. I thought about today somewhat, a lot, and I realized I kind of came to a conclusion that you guys won for now, and basically we lost for now. But that's not going to happen because Parkland murderer, there's going to come a day. It could be a week from now. It could be a month from now. It could be 40 years from now. You're going to die. When you die, it is my fondest hope that they take you and and burn you and take your ashes and throw them in the garbage dump. You know why? Because garbage to garbage. And at that time, Parkland murderer, it is my hope that you go somewhere to meet your maker of whatever it is. And Parkland murderer, I hope your maker sends you directly to hell to burn for the rest of your eternity.
You are not a victim of anything. Again, according to Google, the definition of entitled is believing oneself to be inherently deserving of privileges or special treatment. This is who you are, entitled. Just an individual out for attention that can get it, whether it is good or bad, as long as you are in your spotlight. Well, that spotlight burns out tomorrow. Nobody's going to remember your name, or who you are, or what you did, because after tomorrow, nobody cares about you, or what is going to happen to you, because it ends. Since social media is so important to you, this came across my TikTok For You page. Sadly, I can't remember the fellow educator that this quote belongs to, but you are born looking like your parents. But when you die looking like your decisions. My brother Chris, on February 14th, died a hero. Not just to our family, but to countless others of individuals that he touched. You, however, you will die as nothing because you are nothing.
A year ago, in this very building, you told us that you had remorse for what you did. Well, where was your remorse when you saw my father injured and bleeding out on the floor and decided to shoot him for a third time? Your defense preyed on the idea of your humanity, yet you had none for those that you encountered on February 14th. You're not a disturbed or broken person. You're a person who fundamentally lacks character. You lacked gratitude for what you did have in life, which is more than many others have. You lacked courage to seek whatever help you needed. You lacked the strength to ignore your misguided anger and channel it into something positive. And you lacked love, not only for yourself, but for those around you. Instead of seeking out a community to support you, you resorted to the lowest form of communication, violence. You sought out power and strength over others, ignoring that the strongest people are those who have a tribe behind them. That's what people like my dad had that made them strong. They had people around them who supported them and built them up. What you did was weaken a family, a community, and generations of young adults by taking their strongest advocate out of their corner. You are, unfortunately, living proof that evil does exist in our world, and you've proven that you have nothing positive to contribute to society. You're not going to be a case study or provide some kind of breakthrough insight into the mind of a school shooter. You're instead going to be relegated to a name on a tombstone that no one ever visits.
On February 14th, 2018, I was deployed on a United States aircraft carrier off the coast of Iran. On February 14th, due to time change, I flew my usual flight, and I never got the chance to check my email from my husband, as is standard procedure. By the time February 15th came around, and I read his email, I will never forget it. Babe, I'm on the way to the airport, but my dad didn't make it. He's dead. When I finally got the chance to call my husband off the ship, the first thing I said to him was, did they catch the car? Did they get the guy who got him, who ran him over? I didn't get a chance to read his previous emails that told me what had happened. My husband was at the airport at that time, making his way over to Florida from where he was stationed at the time. And when he told me what had happened, I collapsed to the floor. By the time I made it back to the United States, 4 days later, I entered my mother-in-law's house, and it's a scene I'll never be able to burn off my brain. That night, when I finally had a moment alone with my husband, and we had the chance to chat, there's another thing that I will never forget. And the thing that my husband said to me was, I just wish the killer had talked to my dad. I wish he had reached out to him, because my dad would have shown him the love that he so desperately needed. My dad would have given him the guidance and support that every other person failed to give him. And that's exactly who Chris Hickson was. Beyond everything that everyone has said, he would have given the shirt off his back. He was a courageous, loving, and wonderful man. And I never got the chance to tell him that. So I came up here today, not necessarily for me, but for Chris. And not just for Chris, but for all the other victims who deserve to know that they will be remembered, and that unfortunately, I'm not the only service member that has had to go through the loss and murder of a family member in recent years due to the plague like him that are becoming a cancer in our country. As a service member, I took an oath to defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic. And to the defendant, that's exactly what I view you as, a domestic terrorist. And everyone that does these heinous acts like you, because, again, as I said, as I stood and stared off the coast of Iran and defended everyone in this country through my service, I thought I was the one in danger. But it was my family being slain back home. I wish no peace for you. I wish nothing but pain. And I hope that every breath you take, you remember that that's a breath you stole. You stole Chris from us, but we will honor his memory every single day. So in a sense, you also gave us at least that gift. There's a lot more I wish I could say, but I can't even look at you right now. Thank you, Your Honor.
Don't ever think of yourself as a coward. Please, people handle things in different ways. You're a hero, and you have a beautiful family. You all have made such an impression on this court, and I wish you the absolute best. You are very strong, very good people, and you've made a lasting impression on everyone, truly. And I thank you for your service and bravery, and your dad's as well.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Even more so now that he has escaped being punished to the fullest extent of the law, as I believe he should have been, knowing he gets to live out the rest of his natural life, something Elena doesn't get to do, because of his disgusting and violent actions on February 14th, 2018. He has escaped this punishment because a minority of the jury was given the power to overturn the majority decision made by people who were able to see him for what he is, a remorseless monster who deserves no mercy. He has admitted to knowing what he did and described it in horrific detail. A person has to be incredibly sick to want to hurt another human being, even sicker to dwell on the desire and craft a plan, and unimaginably evil to execute that plan, which didn't just hurt people but ended lives. To add insult to murder, he was even arrogant enough to plan a disguise, believing that he would be able to escape his actions as my sister lay dying on a classroom floor, unable to escape his bullets. This incredible darkness that he has within him, which has been labeled here as mental illness, is something that should be considered unacceptable and intolerable. Yet, in this court, we have shown the world that if one stretches the truth, they can get away with not only murder, but mass murder. Every single sick, twisted little freak hiding in their room, searching up things on the internet like mass shooter hype videos of mass shootings, police response times, etc., will now look at this case and say to themselves, all I have to do is claim mental illness, and I can get away with it. An incredibly dangerous and ridiculous precedent that has been set here will affect the lives of children across the nation. The defendant and I are the same age, and I can say for a fact that at the time he murdered Elena, he was old enough and mentally aware enough to understand the permanence of death, what that meant. He understood how much it hurt from his own personal experiences, and he fully understood what the consequences would be for murdering someone, yet he chose to do it anyway. I could sit here and complain, as he has, that I've had a hard life. I was bullied in school. I've lost 15 family members and loved ones since I turned 9, to sickness, suicide, accident, and now murder. Not once have I ever turned to hurting others as a solution to make me feel better, because I'm not a coward and I'm not weak. However, after witnessing these proceedings, it appears to me that we coddle, protect, and even reward weakness and evil in a person. I have tried to turn the other cheek so many times and stay strong throughout Elena's murder and everything related to this case afterwards, so much so that I feel that my cheeks are bleeding. But I'm still here trying to do the right thing and stick up for her memory. I have relived Elena's murder in this courtroom. No one that's up here right now can imagine what it's like to have a little sister murdered. And you cannot begin to, understand the depth of pain that it is to relive it in a very public setting, surrounded by strangers. I have heard the gunshots that killed her through the speakers in here. I have listened to the medical examiner describe the fatal gunshot wounds that he inflicted on my 14-year-old baby sister. Sorry, I can't see. I gave a victim impact statement earlier in this trial in an attempt to follow the law and represent my sister's memory, all that's left of her, only to be met with myself, my family, and 16 other families of the defendant's murder victims being accused of only trying to attend looking for revenge. Not once have I petitioned the court to allow me to kill him myself. We are all here to seek justice. I am painfully aware that sentencing him to death will not bring her back, and I am the only one on this half of the room that has to go home and live with that forever. But what we've been told here is that 17 lives are worth nothing if you can make enough excuses for your actions. He has gotten everything he's wanted in this case, save 3 more victims, because as he stated, his goal was to take the lives of 20 innocent people. And we are left with nothing and a slap in the face to top it off. Elena was unable to protect herself from his bullets in that classroom, and this court has failed to protect her posthumous rights, her memory, and her family. I believe that who you are as a human being is, 1, how you treat other people. He showed no kindness, no mercy, no remorse while murdering Elena. He shot 139 rounds of ammunition in that building. He had 138 opportunities after his first bullet to stop. He could have stopped after the first classroom, after the first magazine, after the first floor, but he chose to keep firing, to climb multiple staircases, and to continue his rampage because he was enjoying hurting other defenseless and frightened human beings. He shot Elena through the heart. Why? Because she didn't pick a good enough hiding spot? Because she wasn't able to escape his line of fire fast enough in a moment of intense fear? He shot her multiple times, as he did every other victim, to make sure that she was dead. That is how he treats other people. Another thing that shows who you are as a human being is your actions when you are struggling.
I understand that he believes his life has been hard. I don't think a single person in this courtroom today can say they have had an easy life, yet the rest of us keep trying to do our best, and he believes that he is above that charge. He chose to turn to violence to solve his problems, and is now being protected from the same punishment he needlessly inflicted on my sister because he's too scared to receive what he exuberantly dished out. The first major event of my adult life was when I was 19, when my sister was shot to death. And now my early 20s are ending with being told that no justice will be done in her memory. That she died, but it doesn't matter because his life wasn't cupcakes, rainbows, and sunshine. He gets daily meals, a roof over his head, and a bed to sleep in now. My sister's body is food for carrion. Her roof is 6 feet of dirt, and her bed is a coffin. She died scared. She tried to hide behind a desk, and he shot her multiple times, as I said, with one of the bullets hitting her in the heart. She died alone on a dirty classroom floor, and whether she suffered for 1 second, 1 minute, or longer, although I can't imagine she lived very long after a bullet tore through her heart, she had no chance of being rescued or saved, and he made sure of that. The building which you all have walked through is where her last breath, her screams of pain, and her blood have rotted away for years. I will never get to say goodbye to her. I will never get to look at her face again or crack jokes with her. The last time I saw her sweet face was when she was lifeless and cold, laying in a coffin. If I want to visit her or talk to her, I have to drive to a cemetery and talk to a plaque with her name on it. He is going to have the ability to see his family and call them. I get to spend the first half of every visit I make to her grave for the rest of my life trying to avoid thinking about how her body is beneath my feet and wondering if I'll see her in another life. Elena will never grow up. He stopped her at 14. She's never going to go to college, get a job, get married, meet any of her nieces or nephews, have kids, or even breathe again. But he'll be able to draw a breath, and he has for the past 4.5 years that she has not. And he will get to continue to do so into old age. I believe that one who robs another human being, let alone 17 of them, of their power over their own life and the right to live out their natural lives, getting to keep both of those privileges is not an example of justice. Thank you.
You don't know me, but you tried to kill me. I will have a scar on my arm in the memory of you pointing your gun at me, ingrained in my brain forever. The person I was at 2:20 on Wednesday, February 14th, 2018, is not the same one who stands here today. I am broken and altered, and I will never look at the world the same way again. I used to be eternally happy and relatively carefree, but now I have worries and fears that seem unreasonable to most. There's a change in me that runs deep. There is underlying sadness within me that is never quite gone. A part of me is damaged, and I can feel how different I am, even if it isn't visible. The scars inside of me are those of horror and guilt. Horror at the memories of what you left behind in your wake, and the guilt that I am left with because I wish I could have done more to save my coworkers and my students who you killed. Why should I bear any burden from what you created? I look at the world differently now, with very little trust in a defensive mindset. I try not to let those who are close to me see it because I am the pulse of my family. They rely on me for comfort, for strength, and my ability to look at situations in a logical manner. I have walls up because I feel like I am always in protection mode. This has fractured friendships and altered relationships with my family members. I can't accept it when someone wants to comfort me because I feel like I must always be strong. This has repelled people from my life. It is now a knee-jerk reaction, the new me. My kids almost lost their mother, and my husband almost lost his wife. Their view of the world and their innocence was taken from them as well. My children were at school that day too. They were afraid for themselves, but even worse, they thought I was dead. Teenagers who were living their best life were faced with unheard trauma, attending funerals of their friends and watching over me, their own mother, for signs of unraveling. I see you in my nightmares and in my daydreams, and not a day goes by that I don't think about that horrible day. Because of you, I check for all exits wherever I am. Because of you, I think of the worst case scenario for myself and my family. Because of you, I will never feel safe again. This statement is offering just a crumb of closure for me, knowing that I will live with this until I take my last breath. I am disappointed and disgusted with the verdict that was handed to you. You do not deserve the best case scenario, and under any circumstance, the idea that you, a cold-blooded killer, can actually live each day, eat your meals, and put your head down at night seems completely unjust. The only comfort I have is that your life in prison will be filled with horror and fear. So my hope for you is that you die sooner rather than later. I have no forgiveness in my heart for you. You are a monster with no remorse, and every breath you take is a breath wasted.
One of Ben's trauma surgeons, who was a surgeon in the military, once said to us, Ben sustained injuries similar to what a soldier would in combat. That really put it into perspective for us. His initial recovery included months of wound changes at the hospital, physical therapy multiple times a week, and countless doctor's appointments. When he came home, he couldn't even stand long enough to brush his teeth. Shrapnel that is lodged in his spine was pressing on nerves, causing severe pain in his legs and feet. To this day, he is still recovering. He continues to have limitations to what he can and cannot do. You will never understand the pain that he has gone through. His life and the lives of our entire family have changed forever, both physically and mentally. He was one of the most critically injured students that day, but he has chosen to take what happened to him and use it as power to help others. Challenges will lie in his path, but he will conquer them, and we will help him.
We hope that you, the monster who did this to our son, endure a painful existence in your remaining days. Whatever pain you experience in prison, unfortunately, will be a fraction of what Ben endured.
What the legal system should protect and impart. Justice. Justice. Justice, Miss McNeil. Justice, Miss Curtis. Justice, Mrs. Shea. Justice. Leaving an open question if this, the worst mass shooting to go to trial, does not deserve the death penalty, what does? To encounter people like you who diminishes the senseless and violent crime committed by this killer, justifying it by stating that he is mentally ill, broken, and brain damaged, showing more compassion, empathy, and humanizing him the way you all pejoratively to us and our killed loved ones during the whole trial, where we patiently, heartfully, and with composure, we, the families, we,
the victim's friends, we, the injured, contain ourselves to voice our pain and outrage towards you all. Watching and listening, day by day, how embracing arms, note exchanges, signs of affection is like a sadist fetish towards the victimizer. And that is what's all made by each one of you. You were delightful to do that. Shameful, despicable behavior by you people, stating loud and clear that killing is not an aggravating factor. Then what it is? We need more to hear from real, honest, and honest people. Mitigating factors did not exist. You understand that? You built it. Evil is in his system, meaning your system. Simple as that. Imposing fear to control the jury's decision toward phrases such as courage over comfort. Do you remember that, Ms. McNeil, when you were wearing white, giving your closing arguments? Huh? Wake up at night and hear your heart. Gave me the strength to this day where the universe grants me and us the opportunity to say what should have been said at certain times. It is not anger or revenge that put me in this position. I want you to listen very well. I am far beyond those feelings. I have emptiness, I have sadness, and I have grief. I am broken. I am broken. I am broken. I am broken. I am broken, and I am broken. And you are all in the same team, because all of us now we are broken. Me, our family and friends are shattered forever. But within all thoughts, one especially comes to mind at this moment. Karma. Karma. This is what you all will face for the rest of your miserable life, because you are all a team. The fact of facing your children, family members, and the society that surrounds you when you confronted with the question, you victimized and defended a child, an educator killer. You all. A school shooter. How about if someone like that comes to our school and kills us? That's a question that you gotta answer someday. You, not me. Victimizing and pleading mercy for this defender, it's on you. On you.
on you. Your sleepless nights, where you will hear your heart pounding, will be filled with regrets, because the only real victims were the ones he massacres. And karma will eventually catch up to you all. Now you, the defender, the killer. The defense said, we dehumanize you. It is far from reality. You are a natural evil killer. I thought that the devil did not exist until death put us in front in this path. You had in your head enjoyment. Listen to me, defender. Enjoyment. While killing my son, Joaquin Oliver, and coming back to him to blow his brain out and splattering his blood all over. This is the recognition you wished for. Your living hell is about to get started. Your share of karma will bite you as well. Joaquin is the king. Joaquin is a legend for what he is and for what he will be. Nice, kind, humble. And you will remember every single day of your life about what Joaquin is. This is all I have to say right now. Let me add something else. Your boss, Mr. Wick, says the sentencing hearing is not only an accountability process, but there are also some cathartic pieces that come from it. So I thought that we were here to solve a problem, not to do a catharsis. Thank you, My Honor.
I just rewatched the defense's closing argument, and one thing that really stuck out at me was their insistence that the jury that the murder had slipped through the cracks. The defense knows that that is a lie. They know Sheriff Bob Galtieri, the chair of the MSD Commission, had said that he had never seen an individual that has received more mental health services than the Parkland murderer. But in closing arguments, you reiterated over and over again that he didn't get the proper services throughout his childhood. Let's look at the facts and see if that was actually true. Dr. Kravitz, his psychologist when he was 8 years old, spent 15 sessions with him over 13 months. Then from 2005 to 2007, at Coral Springs Elementary, he received direct language therapy multiple times per week and family counseling weekly. Caradad Harvey, another witness that testified, a mental health counselor from Henderson Behavioral Health, spent 7 sessions with him from 2009 through December of that year. And in 2011, he received more direct language therapy once a week and counseling once a week. At Westglades, he received ESE services for academics and social development with more pull-out language therapy and counseling. Dr. Karpf, his second psychiatrist, treated for him for the next 3.5 years. And she had him on multiple medications from Strattera to Focalin to Resveratrol. But then former public defender Howard Finkelstein of Broward County said that, quote, "We let one of our children fall off the grid." That wasn't true. This individual didn't fall off the grid. He was the grid. He was getting every service that they offered. Services continued. Camelot conducted 27 home visits between 2013 and 2014. Then he received more services from Henderson. From their time with him, they turned over 700 pages for this trial. 700 pages of therapy sessions. He received weekly therapy sessions between 2014 and 2015 that totaled hundreds of hours of therapy. Does that sound like somebody that fell off the grid? Finkelstein? Jessica Flournoy testified from Westglades Middle School. She was the admissions counselor in 2015. She said he was in group sessions for 2.5 months, and then they moved him to individual sessions. During the 2014-15 school year, when he was in 9th grade, he made a lot of progress, we heard, with therapy at home and in school. And he only had 2 absences that year and a GPA of 3.14. A parent advocate then also met with Linda an additional 47 times. During the 15-16 school year, when he was in grade 10, he received language therapy again once a week and counseling once a week. In addition, he was receiving counseling provided not only by the school but also by Henderson. Then Dr. Nagin, his next psychiatrist, treated him for the next 5 years up until right before the shooting. But Gordon Weeks, the chief Broward public defender, said he fell off the cracks. But we have to save him now. The defense in their closing argument said that if he had just had the proper diagnosis, that things would have been different. Really? How? His therapists were treating his behavior and his symptoms. Nothing would have changed. Would they have changed his medicine? No. He was on medicine after medicine over the 15 years. He's on medicine now, and he still wants to kill. She said he needed to be properly diagnosed so that he could receive the proper programs and services and accommodations and interventions. He got all of those. Altogether, he had well over 200 individual sessions with mental health professionals. Does that sound like somebody that fell off the grid? They tried everything. They couldn't have given him more services. Over the course of his life, starting at a very young age, he received more than most kids in America will ever receive. It's irresponsible for you to make a statement that is an outright lie. You're making the mental health crisis in America worse by misrepresenting what actually happened to the Parkland murderer, just so you can receive fame and notoriety and go on a book tour? There are so many people that really need mental health services and did not get them, but that's not the case with the Parkland murderer. His psychiatrists, his psychologists, counselors, ESE teachers, all testified to that effect. He was on medication for most of his life. The problem was that he didn't receive services or medication. The problem was that none of it worked. Prior to the trial, I had a lot of hate and anger in my heart for his mother. Today is the anniversary of your mommy's death, isn't it? She's the one who bought him his first gun. But after learning more details of her life, living with that animal, during the trial, I understood how much she tried to do for the murderer. There are kids in foster care with no families, kids in abusive homes, and kids living with drug-addicted parents. But that's not the situation. He lived in a loving home. Linda Cruz loved him and tried to help him for the 18 years she was with him. She continued and she never gave up. She took him to doctor after doctor, tried medication after medication. God only knows how much money she spent. Of course there are going to be breaks. No one can be 100% consistent after 18 years, especially when nothing seemed to work. Dealing with those two monsters, I'm sure it was emotionally and physically exhausting. But she was pretty consistent between the ages of 3 and 18. When some things aren't working, you stop for a while. And she did, but then she went right back. And she continued all the way up through her death. She never gave up on him. You obviously have a very high tolerance for murder. God knows what you're showing your kids on television. You obviously have no conscience. If you don't think that this is the worst of the worst, how could you sit there listening to what he did and say this is not the worst of the worst? He hunted down innocent children and staff, terrified, then tortured them, blew their heads apart like a water balloon, and enjoyed it. That doesn't make it on your worst of the worst murderers list? You make me sick. Another person the defense brought up many times to get the jury to vote for life in prison is Scarlett Lewis, the mother of Sandy Hook victim Jesse Lewis. The defense mentioned several people who supposedly love him. One that wanted to make money off of him through producing a movie about his life. And the other wanted to make money by selling her social emotional learning product. During the trial, we learned that Scarlett Lewis calls the murderer and tells him that she loves him. I hope she knows that after she hangs up that phone, he's laughing at her. He then goes and draws 666 on his cell wall with his hemorrhoid blood and draws pictures of guns and writes how he would like to kill more people and murder more people. Her naivete shows that she is a fool. She should know better after her son was murdered in Sandy Hook. I'm sure she's not watched the trial. But if she did, she would know that his mother loved him very much. He didn't have an abusive home life. There are children out there being tortured and raped and don't receive any love. But this was not the case. The Parkland murderer did have love in his life. He even had a girlfriend. But you can't fix evil. It is such a disservice to people that are struggling with mental illness to use that as a mitigator for what he did. There's so many people in this country that suffer from mental illness. They're not going out torturing and murdering people. You mentioned he's got brain damage? Really? Where's his brain damage? In what area? To say that is insulting to people that really suffer from brain damage. He walks. He talks. He can converse. He can hold a job. He's a better shot than most people. There's no brain damage here. And it's insulting to people that truly have it. He did it all. He held a job all by himself. This murder was well thought out, researched, planned, premeditated. He knew exactly what he was doing was wrong. He got enjoyment out of it and watching people suffer. He studied doing this for years, even long before she passed away. He wanted to do this. He wanted to kill people. This was an act of pure evil. Society tried for almost 2 decades to try to rehabilitate him. He had more mental health treatment than anyone. Henderson was at his house for hours a day. Hours a day. But he fell off the grid, right? They tried to get him off his pathway to violence, but nobody was successful. This wasn't somebody that fell through the cracks and you know it, or got lost in the system. They tried, but they could not change his determination to inflict pain upon everything that they touched, whether it was animals or human. He is a sociopath that does not deserve to live amongst us. This creature, that creature, has no redeemable value. And the other prisoners that you will encounter in your new life will inflict that pain upon you, hopefully 17 times over again, until you're screaming for mercy, just like your victims. You mentioned that life in prison is punishment for him. He wanted life in prison from the beginning. How's that punishment? He's been fighting the prosecution and the families for the last 5 years because he doesn't want to die. He's scared to die. He had a well-thought-out strategy to wear his school ROTC shirt that day so he could escape with the rest of the kids running for their lives. Punishment is something the individual doesn't want. In prison, he gets to receive phone calls, boxes of fan mail. He gets to fall in love and get married. He gets a tablet to email and text people. He gets to receive visitors. He gets to watch TV, read books, draw, and write about killing again, and even get a college degree. How is that punishment? He has never had anyone punish him before. He received 77 disciplinary referrals just in middle school alone because he was a menace in the classroom and never had any consequences. How is giving him what he wants, again, punishment? It's not. It's ironic that the anniversary of your mother's death is the same day as my birthday. Today's my birthday. Just know, I want you to know, that every November 1st, I will be celebrating my birthday while you are in prison. And every November 1st, I will be blowing out my birthday candles. And you know what my wish will be? That you suffer a painful, violent death.
With all due respect to the victims' families and the proceedings in Marcy's law, the defense team in this case followed and maintained their constitutional duty, the Sixth Amendment right to provide effective representation to Mr. Cruz. This is a constitutional right that is afforded to every criminal defendant in this system. The court is aware, and so is the state, of Marcy's law and the victims' rights that are afforded in the United States Constitution as well as the Florida Constitution. That does not include personally attacking defense counsel and our children. The defense reached out to the state, Mrs. McCann specifically, in anticipation that something like this might happen. I understand that the victims' families are entitled to feel however they want to feel and are allowed to say whatever it is they want to say. But in the court of law, it is the court's responsibility to maintain the administration of justice. And you know the parameters of a sentencing hearing. The state knows the parameters of a sentencing hearing. I have spoken in email to Mrs. McCann. Mr. Weeks has spoken to the Chief Judge Tudor. And we have also spoken to Mr. Pryor in an effort to prevent this from happening. I did my job, and every member of this team did their job, Judge. And we should not personally be attacked for that, nor should our children. And I'm asking this court, as the administrator of justice, please ask the victims' families like I asked the state attorney's office to do. They know that this is improper. They know this. They know that attacking defense counsel, attacking the judicial system, and attacking the jurors is not permissible. And it sends a message to this community that if you sit as a juror and the verdict you're not in agreement with, that you will be chastised and you will be degraded. Our system of justice is designed the way that it was administered in this courtroom. If he would have gotten death, we would not have said one single word about that, and we would have respected the jury's verdict. This is our system of government, Judge, and Your Honor should be maintaining the decorum in this courtroom to prevent these families from attacking our children and from attacking us personally when we were appointed on this case.
Okay, your objection is noted. State, do you want to?
Your Honor, before we call our next witness, I would like to put something on the record, if I may be allowed, Your Honor.
Okay.
And it is important. The defendant, has taken the lives of these people's family members, their children, their husbands, their sons. And now the defense attorneys want to take the voice of the survivors, the victims, and curtail their rights under Florida law, specifically 941.143, the Florida Constitution, Section 16B, Article 1, which gives victims a right, Your Honor, to express themselves and be heard. They're also trying to curtail the victim's rights to speak under Chapter 960. And Ms. McNeil is right. She did reach out to me, and she did ask that we ask the victims not to speak about the verdict, about the case, but under 941.143, each and every one of these victims here today was apprised under the law by our office, which we had a duty to do, that statements, whether oral or written, shall relate to the facts of the case and the extent of any harm, including social, psychological, or physical harm, financial losses, loss of earnings directly or indirectly from the crime for which the defendant is being sentenced, and any matter relevant to an appropriate disposition and sentence. What these victims are here to talk about today, Your Honor, is an appropriate disposition and sentence. The defense cannot try and impose prior restraint on these victims who have every right to be here and exercise their freedom of speech under the First Amendment, under the Florida Constitution, and under Florida law, Chapter 943 and Chapter 960. And these victims have every right to express themselves. They were muzzled, they were curtailed under victim impact because they knew the instructions and they followed them to a T. And the defense knows that the state worked with the defense to make sure that everything on victim impact was admissible. There were no objections, and the record will bear that out. And Ms. McNeil knows that she and I met to make sure that victim impact was absolutely perfect under the law. And these victims now have a chance and a right to come in here and say what they're allowed to say and what they're legally allowed to say. What the defense is doing is illegal to try and curtail these victims' rights under the law, and it's unconscionable. These victims have a right to express themselves. I have not gone over what their statements are because under the law, under Chapter 960, they don't have to tell me what they're going to say. They can ask me if they need guidance, and I will provide it to them. But they have a right to address this court. Thank you, Your Honor.
All right, State, you can go ahead and call your next witness.
I just need to say that the defense is not attempting to curtail the limits of the sentencing proceeding or the rights that the victim's families have. We are not trying to do that. But the state attorney's office knows that what is happening here is beyond what the victim's families are constitutionally protected to do. You can say whatever you want to Mr. Cruz. You can attack him and say whatever you want. But Your Honor knows that what is happening here is not permissible.
Ms. McNeil, stop suggesting that I know that something is impermissible and that I am allowing it to happen. You're finished. I've heard your objection. It's noted.
Create an atmosphere where dog whistles are being emanated from this courtroom, encouraging folks to act on those same types of behaviors. This is a sentencing hearing. We are asking the court to direct the state to direct those witnesses to address the matters at hand, and that is their feelings with respect to how this particular sentence impacted them and how that will be helpful for the court to render judgment. But to direct any other statements or any other suggestions to the defense and to the jurors to encourage or incite folks to act on those encouragements is not
I object to
appropriate.
those remarks. There has been no incitement. There has been no remarks. How you could equate violence? I mean,
I
the only
agree,
violence
Mr.
you
Weeks.
talk about is the defendant's violence.
All right, and respectfully, Mr. Weeks, Ms. McNeil, who's lead counsel in this case, has made all of these arguments. I've heard them. There's been 16 people that have testified. Only 2 have made a direct comment to the lawyers. And
You know, Judge, I'm standing here and I see that Jeff Marcus jumped up really quickly. But no one jumped up when people were referring to karma acting in the universe. No one was jumping up when they were referring to the defense children. No one jumped up to try to tap down that rhetoric. That is the rhetoric that I'm talking about. That is what I'm trying to be very clear on. Jeff Marcus, the state, they can hide behind their arguments, but we all are witnessing what is occurring in this courtroom.
which is myself. I'm a judge,
And
I understand that I'm in
Thank you,
charge of
Judge.
the decorum, and I feel that 99% or a great percentage of what has been said has been appropriate. Everybody has maintained decorum, but for a few comments, it's best to just move on as opposed to highlight them.
This is true, Judge, but I am witnessing a building of momentum, and I'm encouraging the court to direct the state to tap down on that momentum so it does not reoccur and it does not become a theme. Thank you, Judge.
Your Honor, for the record, the only thing the state has said to any of these witnesses when they get up is, would they like to say something on behalf of the victim they're representing? There's been no encouraging or inciting, as Mr. Weeks has put on this record. That is a blatant falsehood and a recreation of the record. As far as no objections being made, it's the defense that could have objected. It's not the state's duty to object to their own witnesses when they're testifying.
Okay. Listen, I've already heard. If you have anything else to say, you can put it in writing at a later time. I've heard from both sides more than once. That's going to be it. I've made my decision. Like I said, 99% of what's been testified to has been appropriate. I do not want to highlight the few things that were said that were perhaps not appropriate, and let's move on.
Judge, I'm asking for 20 seconds next.
You can have as many seconds as you want in writing, and you can put all of your objections in writing. They've been made multiple times from your chief assistant, from Ms. McNeil, and I don't want to hear anything else. I've already heard it. Is there something that has not already been argued?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, exactly what is it?
Judge, before Mr. Scherer took the podium and testified before this court, I wanted to the record to reflect that both Mr. Marcus and Mr. Satz looked at the statement prior to the reading. And so their implicit adoption of what he was saying was improper arguments. The court should
Okay, but what you are doing right now is highlighting something and making more of a spectacle. So if your office in general does not want to facilitate or incite violence, then we need to just sit down and move on. That's it. There were 18 witnesses, 16 or 18 witnesses that testified today. There was nothing that was said until Ms. McNeil made her point made, and, you know, we're moving on.
But is the court going to do anything about maybe stopping it from happening again?
When these people are upset about specific things that have gone on from that table, like shooting the middle finger up at this court and laughing and joking, Ms. McNeil, be quiet. When these people have sat in this courtroom and watched this behavior from that table, and they want to say that they're not happy about it, what is the problem?
Judge, I have no problem because I have thick skin. But once you bring in my children, I think that's highly improper. I
didn't even know you have children. I don't know what you're talking about. Your children? What about your children?
For them to comment on my children is highly improper, and for this court to allow that kind of testimony
Okay.
is also improper.
I don't remember any comments about any children, and if there was, it obviously didn't, it came and went without me noticing it.
Judge, I can assure you that if they were talking about your children, you would definitely notice it.
You need to sit down right now. You're out of line. In fact, you're excused. You need to go sit in the back with your chief public defender.
He's the public defender, Judge.
Mr. Weeks, please ask the lawyer from your office to go sit down and not say anything else. To try to threaten my children and bring up my children is inappropriate. Go to the back of the room now. That just violated about every rule of professional responsibility that I have never. If you're going to get up here and you're going to...
Judge, I asked you to go sidebar on this matter.
You, sidebar or not, you don't have one of your assistant public defenders say something about my children?
Judge, that same venom that the court is expressing is the same venom that defense counsel had to sit through this entire morning when their children
She brought up her children multiple times during the trial. Nobody knows if I'm barren or not. They don't know about my children.
Judge.
Sit down. Sit down.
Judge.
Sit down, Mr. Weeks.
Please do not summarily dismiss me.
I'm summarily dismissing
I'm asking
you. Go
the court,
sit down.
I'm asking the court. I asked the court to go sidebar.
Go sit down. You don't threaten the
Judge,
court's children.
everyone
Your
in this
assistant just
courtroom-
did that. Go sit down.
No one in this courtroom had to endure what we had to
Go
endure.
sit down. Miss McNeil has made her children a spectacle more than once during this trial. That was her choice. You have absolutely no right to have one of your assistants come up here and suggest something about my children. Now, please go sit down.
Judge.
You're
Judge,
inappropriate and out of line. Go sit down.
Judge, may I have a brief recess?
No. Go sit down.
May I have a brief recess so I can speak to my attorneys?
We're moving on with the sentencing, Mr. Weeks.
So can I have a brief recess?
No.
Thank you.
It's 1:36. Thank you.
So yesterday, I put out a message that I wasn't going to speak. But after yesterday's events, I changed my mind. First, I want to thank you, Judge, for attempting to keep this courtroom from being a circus. The state attorneys for all the hard work that they've done for way too many years. The victims' advocates in Eagles Haven who have supported us every single day, beyond imagination, honestly. So, you shouldn't be sitting there with a mask on your face. It's disrespectful to be hiding your expressions under your mask when we as the families are sitting here talking to you. Lowered down in your seat, hunched over, trying to make yourself look innocent when you're not. Because you admitted what you did and everybody knows what you did. I felt the need today to remind this court and this entire country who are the important people here. And that's Jamie, my daughter, and the other 16 victims that were murdered, as well as the 17 that were injured, and countless thousands of mentally injured people from this massacre. They suffered the unimaginable. And as a reminder, there's no question about what happened. Guilt was admitted. I won't take the time to talk about you, because as far as I'm concerned, you deserve zero acknowledgement. I need only to speak about the families who have endured this horror of what you did to our loved ones. Yesterday, the elected public defender said that nobody had to endure what this defense had to endure. Let me just tell everybody what our families have had to endure. For those of you who don't know, there were many rules and restrictions for our families. We were not to wear colors like orange for my daughter, or advertising types of clothing or gear related to our loved ones. We weren't to have major reactions or facial expressions from what was being said. We had to be quiet. We didn't make a peep. We couldn't make any verbal sounds. We couldn't use our cell phones in the courtroom, even though the attorneys, the press, and everyone else could use theirs. We weren't to be speaking outside of this courtroom because we were unaware of where jurors might be and may run into somebody. The list goes on and on. And as a reminder, Mr. Weeks, and the rest of the defense attorneys, your client murdered our loved ones in cold blood, hunted them down, shot them over and over until he knew he accomplished his goal and left them for dead with no remorse. In fact, he left amongst the other students and stopped for a Slurpee because he was thirsty after his rampage. I feel our families need to be recognized. Whether in the courtroom or watching from elsewhere, we sat through this entire trial respectfully. We tried not to react while videos of our loved ones were being shown to the jury. We tried not to react when the medical examiner described their horrific injuries. We tried not to react as we were verbally taken through the crime scene, step by step. Miss McNeil waved her hand at us during her closing arguments, like this, talking about these people, and no matter what the verdict is, that these people will always be suffering from what happened. It was disrespectful, and I'd like to tell you about these people. We are sad, hurt, lonely, empty, and horrified. Yet we are strong, caring, and respectful. Each of us has done our share to try to do positive things every day, regardless of how our lives have been ruined. We have endured the unthinkable and the nonsense of this trial, including the blatant disrespect of this defense team, and now Mr. Weeks. This is a club that nobody wants to be in, but I'm glad that my club is at least with these amazing people. Let me remind everyone again, as other people have, who's important here. Jamie Guttenberg, my beautiful daughter, Nicholas Dworet, Luke Hoyer, Joaquin Oliver, Gina Montalto, Elena Petty, Kara Loughran, Meadow Pollock, Alex Schachter, Peter Wang, Martin Duque, Carmen Shentrup, Helena Ramsey, Alyssa Al-Hadef, Chris Hickson, Scott Beagle, and Aaron Feiss. Along with the 17 injured and thousands of others affected, I never want to hear the killer's name again. Let us remember the victims and their legacy. My daughter is Jamie Guttenberg. She is forever 14, and she is amazing still. And that's what I want people to remember.
So I'm going to let everyone know something. Last week, I sat with you, Attorney Sachs, in his office. Watched the video of you. I'm glad I get to see your face right now. Of you killing my daughter for the very first time. You see, all those video evidence that was shown in this courtroom, we didn't see it. Maybe that was to protect us, to protect the public. We didn't see it. But heading into this week, I was searching for answers to clarity. And I sat with Attorney Satz, and I watched you kill my daughter on video. And unfortunately, I saw you killing many of the others as well. I saw you enjoying it. And I saw also what I expected of my daughter, who was the toughest human being on the face of the earth, running for her life down the hallway. And the thing is, my daughter made it to within 1 second of being alive. She actually made it into the stairwell. You shot her with a single shot. You severed her spinal cord, her chest filled with blood, in the stairwell. You did that. You did that to the other 16 as well. After I sat with Mike, I did what I often do. I went to the cemetery, looking for guidance from Jamie, for strength. And I walked away from the cemetery realizing, no matter the outcome of the verdict, nothing changed. Jamie's still at the cemetery. Nothing changed. I'm still a dad who spent every day dreaming of walking his daughter down the aisle, who now will have to endure a lifetime of the reality that I won't get to walk my daughter down the aisle. There are, actually by a show of hands, anyone else in this room, because of him, going to have to endure not watching people they love get married? I am a person who has to endure the fact that my daughter is not in the college of her dreams because of you. Out of curiosity, does anyone else in this room have to endure the fact that their loved ones aren't in college? Because of you, I've had to endure spending Father's Day. My wife has had to endure spending Mother's Day. We've had to endure spending our time for birthdays at a cemetery. Anyone else, because of him, have to endure those things? Yeah. Anyone who claims that they had to endure anything close to what we endure, you may want to rethink your language and your choice of words just a bit. I look at you sitting there right now, looking the way you should have looked through the entire trial, like a convicted murderer, in your prison outfit, shackled. It is still incomprehensible to me that when we went through the penalty phase of this trial, which you were already a convicted murderer for, that you were able to sit there looking like Howdy Doody, in whatever outfit they felt like putting you in for the day, your hairstyle, your mask on, your seat really low like a little boy, faking out the jury as to who you really are. We endured months of watching that show. It was BS. But you put on a great show, I'll tell you that. You did your job. You got him from not getting the death penalty. You all can't understand the pain that we go through. But what I will say is that statement yesterday, I actually believe it, that Public Defender Weeks believed it. I actually think you all believe it. You've endured something worse than us, which is why you've behaved the way you have with us. Months we've been here, not a single one of you has actually ever even looked in our direction, made an effort to say, we're sorry for your loss, ever. Now, I understand you had a job to do defending the indefensible, defending a mass murderer of 17 people. I understand that was hard, and you were doing your job as you were required to do. But I'm not sure anywhere along the way there was a requirement that you give up your humanity and you give up your decency, but you did. That was a choice you made. I got your email apologizing for the middle finger stunt. I have it, okay? Laughing with him as you're doing it. And the crazy thing is, I've reread it multiple times. You actually didn't apologize to us. You apologized that you didn't know the camera was on while you were doing that you got caught. That's what we've had to endure, okay? Because we've always seen you all turning this into that. But again, you didn't get the death penalty. You did your job. I hope you're all proud of yourselves. You know, I believe in the Ringo Starr philosophy of life, peace and love. I do. So with that, I need to address some of the other comments from Mr. Weeks yesterday, suggesting that our families were inciting violence, comparing it to what happened to Speaker Pelosi. When that happened yesterday, my wife, I started screaming in the house. So what I need to let you all know, all of our families, because of what you did, I didn't know them before. I knew nothing about them. We've all got to know each other. And every single one of these families, because of what you did, is doing amazing things in this country today in the name of safety, in the name of saving lives, in the name of making sure our schools are safer, our streets are safer. I travel this country. I haven't worked since what you did. A real job anyway. I travel the country going to harass politicians to make sure we can do more to reduce gun violence. That's what I do now. And along that path, since Mr. Weeks brought up the name Speaker Pelosi yesterday, implying we're trying to incite some kind of violence. Here's the crazy thing. Because of what I do, I actually know Speaker Pelosi. I know her well. And anyone who follows my story knows she's a really important person to me in my life. And so I don't know if Public Defender Weeks is in the room or not. But for him to have trivialized and minimized that real act of violence to make a moronic, stupid point, shame. That's all I can say, shame. I'm going to end with this. For almost 5 years, we've been silent. We were silent through this trial. We sat here, we held it in. But I'm going to share something personal. On the day of the medical examiner visits where they discussed Jamie, I need you all to know, because this gets back to the word endure, what we endure, that while I was sitting there, I was having chest pains and shortness of breath. And you want to know, I didn't say a word, because I didn't want to hear you call to the judge, because it happened in front of the jury, and ask for a mistrial. And so I sat there with chest pains. And the second the medical examiner finished talking about my daughter, my wife immediately got me out of the room. And I ended up with weeks of testing from a cardiologist, and thankfully I am okay. I have a broken heart, but I am okay. But the need to sit here silently while you all did what you did, while you had a neighbor who you put on this little show running around the room, who didn't really know him. He lived in a house behind a house across the street, met him once in person. He ended up under cross-examination acknowledging that. You actually spoke about the neighbor in your closing statement, but the neighbor didn't actually know him. Okay? We watched this. We endured this. And yeah, it got to be too much at times that I developed a health issue over it. But again, I am okay. And I'm going to be okay. And I am going to go forward with my wife. And we are going to continue to build our foundation, Orange Ribbons for Jamie. And everyone else back there, they're going to continue to build their amazing foundations, doing all the amazing work that they do. Just so you know, because of you, our foundation is starting a new program called Paws of Love. We're going to be providing emotional support dogs to victims of gun violence. So the next time somebody does what you did, we'll be there for them. That's who we are. To suggest for 1 second that we would be the kinds of people, or anyone back there would be the kinds of people who would incite violence, y'all should be ashamed of yourselves. But you said it. Can't take it back now. So I'm going to leave it here. I'm only looking to see 2 more things happen today. One will be your formal sentencing of him. And the other one, I want to see Gordon Weeks resign before the end of the day today. Thank you.
Okay. So I wasn't going to say anything until yesterday's events. So I will start with this. To you, I would never, ever, ever sit down and write anything about you and take my time. So like Debbie Hickson said, you will cease to exist after today. I just hope that your fellow inmates take real nice and cozy care of you. Okay. So, I wasn't going to say anything today, but in light of yesterday's events, I decided I would not allow any of you to make us out to be the kind of people that resort to any kind of threats, especially threats towards children. No one in this courtroom has had to go through what we have had to go through. Statement by Gordon Weeks. What exactly have you had to go through? Did you have to sit here for the past few months and listen to medical experts describe how many shots your loved one received? How much they suffered while being hunted down by the murderer? Are you that out of touch? Ms. McNeil, were your feelings hurt yesterday? Because here I thought you were a soulless person along with your fabulous team. Since the entirety of this trial, you have behaved as such, not once looking over at us, instead feeling empathy and compassion for the murderer. Whatever so-called attacks you're receiving, you brought upon yourselves, each and every one of you. Had you handled this case with more class and professionalism, we perhaps could have focused our negative feelings solely on the murderer. But professionalism, class, and respect is something only the prosecution seems to be acquainted with. I will repeat your words. Remember, this was a personal moral decision you all made. Like when you decide to marry someone, or when you don't want to marry someone. So look into your heart, look into your soul, and learn to live with the fact that you condoned the slaughter of 17 innocents. But I promise you that one day, I don't know when, you will ask yourself, did I make the right decision? Thank you, Your Honor, for the way you conducted this entire trial.
Voted that your crime was heinous, calculated, premeditated, and cold-blooded. That's enough for me. That you recognize the type of person, I take that back, the type of animal that you are. Calling you a person demeans everyone else here. I will not waste my time going to chapter and verse of all the inappropriate actions of defense counsel. I agree with everything Matt Schachter said. I agree with everything Patricia Alva said. Zealous representation of the confessed murderer does not mean flipping the bird when you think the cameras are not on you. This is simply not professional. My wife and I sat in the courtroom when you, Mr. Weeks, I don't know if you're here, okay, but you should be embarrassed if you are, had the balls to say on the record with the families of those murdered sitting in the courtroom that no one has endured what he, and meaning the defense, has endured. Are you freaking kidding me? I'm not going to repeat what Fred Guttenberg said, because he said it so eloquently. Ask me if I feel sorry for Mr. Wheeler or Ms. McNeil, who had such thin skins that they objected during this proceeding over what was said. No one threatened any of your families. Did you see the gun? Did you see the film? Did you see the picture of that piece of shit pointed at my son? Did you see him going down? That's a threat. Words that were said yesterday by those people were not threats to you. Grow a set of, thicken your skin. You are no better than he is if you take offense to that. This man, this animal, this piece of shit, this bastard
took the lives of 17 people. You have a right to defend him. You have no right to demean the people who lost somebody. None. If I had done 1/10 of what you did during this entire proceeding, I would have either been disbarred, brought up on charges, lost my license. But no, you did what you had to do because you were defending the indefensible. You've all had your 15 minutes of fame. Every one of you. It's done. You're done. I never want to hear your name. I never want to see your face ever again. Our family sat in silence, like Fred just said. We had to endure listening to the testimony over and over again. 17 medical examiners testified about what your bullets did to our children's bodies. And you sat there with the same freaking expression you have now. None. Cold, no emotion, no remorse. What type of animal are you? We avoided all social media. We avoided saying anything to the press. We sat here and endured. We were afraid, as Fred said, of a mistrial because every time anything came up, the first thing you heard is mistrial, mistrial, mistrial. Mr. Weeks, how do you live with yourself for making such an indecent, insensitive, and unprofessional statement like you did yesterday? No one had to endure what your attorneys had to endure. I'm sorry, but I don't believe any of your attorneys or our loved ones were murdered by the bastard your office is representing. If I had done half of what you did, I would have been held in contempt of court because no judge would allow that. And for that, I credit the judge because she knew by doing that, she could have a mistrial immediately. I admire her jurisprudence. I admire the way she controlled this courtroom in spite of everything you people did. Now, I want to tell you why I'm here. On February 13th, 2018, I was home in bed with the flu. My son Scott called me to see how I was doing. Said, not so well. He said, don't worry, I'll speak to you tomorrow. That never happened. But let me tell you more about February 14th. February 14th is also our daughter Melissa's birthday. Do you now know people don't want to call her on her birthday because they don't know what to say to her? They don't know whether to say happy birthday or I'm sorry. 2 days later, we were sitting in my mother-in-law's home in Palm Beach Gardens, February 16th. We were sitting with a funeral director. That's my birthday. My birthday memory is sitting at a table planning my son's funeral because of you. Know how we got down here? We live in New York. I was watching TV, CNN. I was sick. They reported a mass shooting in a city, town, school in Florida. Parkland, Florida. What do I know about Parkland, Florida? Scott was teaching. What do I know? I called my wife. I said, Linda, what's the name of the school that Scott teaches at? And she said, I don't know, something with 3 names. We found out it was Marbury, Stoneman Douglas. We heard on the news that a geography teacher was shot. Couldn't get a plane down here. There were no commercial flights down. We had to charter our own jet to fly us down here and sit in the Marriott, the command center, for hours, not knowing what happened to our son. We sat there with all these people, some of them crying, some of them scared, not knowing what the hell had happened to their loved ones. You talk about the victims. Yes, Scott was a victim. There were 16 other victims who were killed. There were 17 other victims who were shot. There are thousands of people in Parkland and all over the world, who were affected by what happened here. Scott was a camp counselor. For 28 years, he was a camp counselor. When Scott was murdered, we went to arrange his funeral, and the rabbi said to us, "How many people do you expect here today?" We said, "Well, we're not from Florida. I don't know, maybe 100?" There were 1,000 people in the room. But not only that, the rabbi said he's been getting calls for us to live stream his funeral. 500,000 people watched that funeral. So don't tell me your life is worth more than his. Ever. So let me tell you about Scott a little bit. See on my sleeve? Which sleeve is it? Just Run Faster. Okay? Scott was the cross-country coach at Stoneman Douglas. After one meet, his students were very, very upset that they lost the meet by a few points or minutes. I don't know how they calculate that anymore. I don't really care anymore. And he looked at us, they all came to him, all upset. "What do we do, coach? What do we do?" He didn't say, "Well, you were ready to do this, you would do that." He just said, looked at them square in the face, said, "Just run faster." That's the phrase used by all of the MSD cross-country teams. Now, just run faster. That's how he treated his students. That's how he treated his team. You destroyed that. You animal destroyed that. You took my son away and a teacher away that loved his children. Someone you never met. You never had anything to do with. That's what you did. You're a bastard. You're a freaking animal. That's what you destroyed. That is what you killed. That's the spirit that you don't have and never had. With that blank freaking stare on your face. Okay, you should only rot in hell. You fired 139 rounds of ammunition on that day. 139. You could have stopped at any freaking time. After the first freaking bullet, you could say, "Oh my God, what am I doing?" But you didn't. You continued to fire. And after the first floor, you said, "What the hell am I doing?" No, you had to go to the second floor. You had to go to the third floor. You had to walk past Jamie Guttenberg's body like she was a piece of trash on the floor. That's what you did. You show no remorse. You have no redeeming values. You're a coward. You're a freaking coward. You dressed up to blend in with the people you terrified that day. So don't tell me you had no planning abilities. You planned the whole thing out very, very well. The fact that I have to share my world with you is disgusting. The fact that I have to breathe the same air you breathe is reprehensible. I can't wait till that ends. Your sentencing today does not end the book. This chapter is done. But what we're missing is the epilogue. And for me, I look forward to reading that epilogue. What will happen to you in jail? You'll be passed around like an inanimate object. Your protection will be paid for by your commissary and probably with your body. You'll be someone's bitch, and you deserve it. Passed around from group to group until you get tired of it. You will be a commodity, traded like bubblegum, cigarettes, drugs, or candy. And one last point. Well, maybe not last point. My 70th birthday is February 2024. My hope, my prayer for my birthday present is to get word that you are dead. That the justice system was done in jail. That the prisoners that you and inmates that you have to associate with executed the judgment that this court can't. And I hope that it's the most painful judgment ever. Hope that when your final death comes, you have the same fear, the same agony as the 16 people you killed and my son. Hope that your death is slow and agonizing, because it won't be like a state execution. Prison justice is a bitch. When your fellow inmates execute the death penalty that you deserve, they will do so in such a cold, calculated, heinous, painful manner that you'll be wishing that the state of Florida had executed you in the compassionate way they must by law. Finally, I have one request, Your Honor. I'm sorry. I just want to say one more thing. In spite of you, in spite of that cold stare, in spite of that ice water bullshit that runs through your veins, in the fact that you have no remorse, no feelings for anything or anybody, we will survive. These 17 families and all the victims of your heinous crime will survive. We will go on, we will make the best of our lives, and we will deal with the daily grief, pain, and anger that we feel every day. I have to learn to live with the pain you caused to my entire family. You are the worst kind of animal. Contrary to the defense, one of the mitigating factors were you are a human being. Trust me, you are not. You are the lowest form of pond scum, and I apologize to pond scum for equating you with them. You are a spineless and soulless monster. My son Scott was a human being. He still is. Something you will never be and never were. He has a soul, he was kind, he has a character, and he cared for his fellow human beings, something you never did. Now one last request, Your Honor. I apologize. I would like to make a formal request to you, or to whoever it has to be, on the record, to the Public Defender's Office. I'm requesting that under the Freedom of Information Act, that the Public Defender's Office make available to me within 30 days, including but not limited to the following documents: each invoice to experts, each billing statement for work done, each and every invoice for disbursements incurred for the representation of the shooter, the amount paid to each public defender, and the compensation to any persons who were compensated for representing the shooter. This day has been long coming. Didn't know how it'd feel right now. Don't feel any better because he's still breathing. The day he stops breathing, I will feel better. Thank you.
It has been 1,723 days since you murdered my son, along with 16 other innocent students. My son Scott was the geography teacher and cross-country coach at Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School, which you heard all about from my husband. In spite of your desire to kill as many students as possible, Scott, realizing that you were in the school and on a killing rampage, he did what he had to in order to save the lives of as many students as he could as possible. He managed to save 31 students before you killed him. This is my son, Scott. I've had 15 days to ponder the jury's verdict, and I realized that the death penalty was way too easy for you. I learned that here in Florida, the average death penalty case takes 18 years from sentencing to execution. That means that I would probably be dead before you were executed. I will go forward knowing that you are going to a maximum security prison with other murderers, much tougher than you are. A prison where you will spend the rest of your miserable life having to look over your shoulder, worried about every single minute of your day, of your life, and scared out of your mind, fearful for someone to take you out. A prison where you will be other inmates' boy toy. A prison where your fellow prison inmates are just waiting to tear you apart, because from what I hear, child killers are highly frowned upon and hated in prison. You will look back at the time that you spent in the Broward County Jail and see it as it was a hotel compared to the prison where you are headed. As far as I'm concerned, real justice would be done if every family here were given a bullet and your AR-15, and we got to pick straws, and each one of us got to shoot one at a time at you, making sure
that you felt every bit of it, and your fear continued to mount until the last family member who pulled that last straw had the privilege of making sure that they killed you. That's real justice for you. I wish for you prison justice, since that cannot happen. And I welcome the day that I am told that you've been tortured and taken out for your cold-blooded, premeditated, calculated, heinous murders, because you deserve no less. Your notoriety is over today. You will no longer be anything but a number here. And I can tell you, I have never uttered your name, and I never will. To me, you'll always be the confessed, convicted Parkland murderer. I have one last request for the media, and this is definitely something that I would really like to have you take to heart. All of the media, not just the people who are here, all the media. Do not give this animal the notoriety he craves. Out of respect for the 17 families whose loved ones were murdered by this animal, an animal that continues to show no remorse, please do not use his name in your reporting ever again. Please refer to him of who he is, the confessed, convicted Parkland mass murderer. To everyone who can hear my voice or see me today, these are the names and faces I want you to remember. These are our loved ones who were murdered on February 14th, 2018. These are the innocent lives that we will remember and celebrate forever. Alyssa Alhadeff, 14. Martin Duque Anguiano, 14. Nicholas Dworet, 17. Aaron Feiss, 37. Jamie Guttenberg, 14. Chris Hickson, 49. Luke Hoyer, 15. Carol Loughran, 14. Gina Maltalto, 14. Joaquin Oliver, 17. Elena Petty, 14. Meadow Pollock, 18. Helena Ramsey, 17. Alex Schachter, 14. Carmen Centra, 16. Peter Wang, 15. My irreplaceable son, Scott Beagle, 35.
My name is Manuel Oliver, and I am Joaquin Oliver's dad.
Mr. Oliver, would you like to say something on behalf of your son Joaquin?
Yes, I do.
Please do.
I was advised not to be in this room since the very beginning of the trial, because if I have said something wrong, you guys could complain. And then I will feel very guilty, not only for my family, but for the other families. So I took an advice from some of my friends here and decided to stay home and watch you guys all time, and watch my brave girls, Andrea and Patricia, doing what they did. And I saw how this doctor was explaining the autopsy of Joaquin. Details that I was avoiding, because I always hoped that Joaquin did not suffer. But he did suffer. You shot my kid 4 times. You blew his head, his marvelous brain and ideas and dreams. You destroyed them. You shot him 4 times. You needed an AR-15 to do that. Because otherwise Joaquin will have beaten the shit out of you. So you were coward enough. And you can be cowards in this life. Hiding your actions. The middle finger, lady. Apologizing for a middle finger. You need to learn how to do a middle finger. So you don't need to apologize to anyone. Yesterday I've heard all of you concerned about your children. It's ironic and unreal. The whole trial suddenly. Oh, don't mess with my kids, my children. Keep away from that. Really? What about our children? So for a minute, the trial was about protecting your kids. That was crazy. That was crazy. I was told not to use profanity here. I won't. I'll try. I think that one of the reasons that you did this, I'm talking to you right now, is to be famous. So I think that someone will steal that fame from you. Whoever takes care of you will own that fame. And someone will. You're going to die before me. And I will celebrate when you die. I heard you saying that you don't want to suffer. You don't like painful things. You understand that you will suffer and you will go through pain. A lot of pain. It would be much easier. Die like a king in a supervised way that everything goes. I wish I could die like that. That's not your future anymore. A lot of pain, a lot of suffering, and someone will replace your fame. And I'm closing this chapter today, but you're not. Your chapter opens today. And Joaquin is with us, his mom, with me. We are with him every single day. That day, you didn't kill me. You didn't kill Patricia. So we are still Joaquin's parents. And Andrea is still Joaquin's sister. And we do what parents do. We come here and let you know what is right or wrong when you fuck with our children. And a lot of people will hate all of you guys now. And they've seen your faces. And you can complain about what I'm saying right now. I don't care. Go ahead. I'm the last speaker, by the way, so I don't think nothing will happen if you say anything right now. And I have another message for you. It's not cool what you did. All the kids, the youth, that along with Patricia and myself work tireless every single day on debating gun violence and change the future of this nation, hate you. So if you were trying to be the cool guy, you're not. You're the worst. How does it feel? Nobody likes you. Sad. You know who they love, Joaquin? They love him. They send him messages. He has followers, millions of followers for all around the planet. And they will keep on following Joaquin while you are afraid of going through pain and die because someone will steal your fame. And this should be our chance to be very clear, sending a precedent out there, which is something that I was hoping it could happen here, but I'm afraid it didn't. Because if we have a death penalty option, again, you have heard this 1,000 times, and we're not using it to take care of this monster, then when are we going to use it? So, people that do what you do should be punished. And we have the chance to show everyone that that is an option. And we wasted that opportunity. So now, the families, including myself, we need to declare that precedent. That is wrong. People like you don't deserve a space here. And that's why we are so clear speaking. We're not talking to you. You guys think that the whole universe goes around you. We are not talking to you. We don't care about you guys. You get offended like I'm talking to you. I'm talking to a whole nation. He doesn't deserve to be here in this society. But, as my wife said, karma. Oh, I'm crossing that line again. You did a great job. You did your best, and I know that. I can feel it. I saw it. And I admire all the families that were here, spending hours, days. I was with you. Trust me. I was crying in my office. Breakdowns. But I followed my friend's Fred advice. Stay home, man. But not today, because today I can say whatever I want. And I can dress however I want. Do I feel better now? I don't know. Tomorrow, you guys are going to go back to your perfect lives, enjoying your family. Tomorrow, we're going back to our thing, missing our kids. And you are out of the picture. And you will be erased from the picture sooner than later. It's time for you to be afraid of me. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. And I am ordering that all 34 counts of the indictment for each sentence is to run consecutive, that is, one after another. I'm ordering all mandatory court costs, all costs of prosecution. I'm ordering the costs of incarceration of the defendant by the Broward Sheriff's Office. I'm also imposing a public defender fee pursuant to Florida statute. I'm ordering restitution for each victim as previously named in counts 1 through 34 of the indictment, with the specific amount to be determined at a later time. I am ordering pursuant to 943-325, the defendant is to submit to 2 samples of his blood or less intrusive method for purposes of the DNA bank. Mr. Cruz, you are remanded to the custody of the Department of Corrections to complete the mandatory life sentences imposed by the court. You have 30 days to appeal the judgment and sentence of the court. If you fail to appeal within the allotted time period, or you fail to contest the imposition of any of the fees or costs imposed during that 30-day period, you will waive said appeal. I am also granting the state's motion under the Florida equivalent of the Son of Sam law, which means, Mr. Cruz, you will not be able to benefit in any way as far as monies are concerned as to the crimes that you committed. In addition, I am going to order the Department of Corrections to garnish the commissary account of Mr. Cruz until all of restitution and costs of prosecution and costs of the sheriff's office are paid in full. The Department of Corrections, I don't know where you're going, but they can assign that duty to their local office where they will charge an applicable fee and garnish your commissary until all of these amounts that I have previously ordered are paid in full, specifically the costs of the sheriff, the state, and any restitution that is ordered. Is there anything else from either side?
Not from the state, Your Honor.
Is there anything from the defense?
Your Honor, the defense waives the PSI at this point.
It was previously waived. Then there was some discussion about whether it could be in a death penalty case, but the defense is maintaining their waiver of a PSI. Mr. Cruz, you're still under oath. Are you in agreement that you're not asking for a PSI in this case? Okay. Is there anything else?
No, Your Honor.
All right, he's remanded to the custody of the Department of Corrections. And he's to be given credit in the amount of 1,718 days time served.